Rock and roll. Welcome back, everybody, to another book review of Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. So, you probably are at this video because you either love the book and want a little refresh before you go and watch the movie, which is out, I don't know when. But we'll get to that. But my impressions of this book are my first experience, there's a word I can't remember right now, introduction to this book. It was a audiobook that my wife Allison was listening to, and I'm not sure how she was turned on to it, to tell you the truth. But the audiobook was fantastic. She's like, this is great. You got to check it out. It was a thing that we did like on the way, on short errand trips. We'd listen to it in the car. We listened to it when we'd go watch soccer games. Really, really fun book. And particularly because Will Wheaton was the reader for the audio series. So, and that was just like one of those moments. He does a great job. It's almost like the audiobook version of that was made for him. So yeah, that was really excellent. The setting is fantastically crafted. It's set in the quasi-distant future. That like this scenario can't happen in the next 10 years, but it could happen in the next 25 to 30 years. So the setting is that it's like 2040 something. The global landscape is very, very different. Everyone is connected by a virtual reality internet structure that started off as a video game format, but has evolved into a social format where economics, well, and that's happening now, but like in a much larger scale, economic format, education has been not replaced, but supplemented by this Oasis program, internet structure. And a lot of people are dipping into that realm and staying there for the most part of their existence. And that kind of gets me on to the next topic, is that it tackles the idea of escapism, and it doesn't argue for or against. It kind of makes you realize what escapism could mean on an individual level. Obviously, this realm, this oasis, is far more preferential than the reality for a lot of people, and also it's the place where you go and work, and it's the place where you get your education, and it does a pretty good job making that a capability for you. The outside realm is something of a wasteland a little bit. Only some of the major city structures are functioning, and in the in-between landscapes there's almost like a Mad Max situation going on. Now, not to the extreme, but like bandits and just order is not what you're used to. In fact, a lot of protections are definitely dumbed down. There's indentured servitude is a big thing. Labor rights, there's no such thing. Corporations are running the show, pretty much. So that's the corporation headquarters cities. They do pretty fine because they're their own police force, and they have the money and sophistication and tech required for all of that. Really, really fun landscape. It's a perfect place to start when discussing a book that's pretty much all in this oasis. And what happens is a programmer, who's a gaming programmer, starts off in what we would maybe current modern day, and it's a really great place to start, is he kind of starts getting successful around this modern time, and then he gets propelled forward when he develops the oasis. He's on his deathbed, and he dies, and he had programmed a Easter egg. And what an Easter egg is in a video game, it's like a fun little hidden thing that a programmer does. It's like an extra bonus to the game. But his Easter egg is far more interesting and produces its own subculture, where his Easter egg is, when you find it, you get all of his fortune and control of his company. And so the evil corporation that wants to take over the Oasis for its own profiteering. Arthur! Hey, stop! I'm doing a book review. Kitty? Chill out, bro. Okay, sorry about that. Evil corporation called, I forgot what it's called. Oh, it's been a while since I finished the book. The evil corporation wants to take over the Oasis and just put ads everywhere, and wants to restrict access and put a price tag on everything. Comes in and wants to win this egg hunt. That's what it's kind of come to. And there's like another group of class of people called Gunters, and they're like the individuals and clans that are like trying to get this egg because they want the glory, and they want to make a lot of them want to make sure that this corporation doesn't get it. That's a lot of the drive for finding this egg, and that's the big part of it. The story. There's 3 gates and 3 keys for each gate. You start off the book and you realize that it's from the perspective of this individual, main Gunter guy, who eventually gets it. And I can say that because it's not a spoiler, because you find out right away that it is a book that he has written after the fact about his story on him finding the Easter egg. So a lot of people might forget that when they get into the book and get rolling, because you get so immersed into it. You're like, oh no, or like, I hope someone finds it. So it comes into the story like 3 to 5 years after the introduction of the egg, after he dies, and no one's found a single piece of single key. And so that's where we kind of pick up and take off. And it's a fun adventure. Really enjoyed the book. Like I said, the perspective is of William Wade. Man, I am butchering. Wade Watts is his name, but doesn't go by Wade Watts. I mean, like a lot of other popular gamers in in like cyber athletics and sports go by kind of like their handle, and he goes by Parseval. And this is just the adventure of Parseval and friends trying to find the Easter egg. So it is a really fun book. Another thing about the book is that the programmer who sets up the Easter egg is absolutely obsessed and infatuated with the 80s. So everything about his hunt is tied to the 80s, and so he almost imposes upon the everyone who's even interested on getting the egg, and for the longest time everyone was, because everyone thought it might be easily attainable, study everything that he loved, which is the 80s. So everyone knows about the 80s, which is like 50 to 60 years, 70 years after the fact. And it's a really cool, there's all these touches on the things that people that are actually from the 80s might really enjoy this book. Most of it is nerd culture pop stuff, but a lot of that stuff has become pop in nerd culture now. So it's a really fun mix. Yeah, and I won't go into like the touches on the 80s stuff. And I'm surprised that the Ernest Cline was able to use all of this pop culture stuff, because I'm not sure about copyrights or trademarks or anything like that. There's so much of it. And the book has a really great range of time. It doesn't happen within a month. It doesn't happen within 20 years. It's like, I think it comes in, it gives you a little background, and then it's like maybe 2 years of book. And also, not a spoiler, I'm just telling you about the range of how things go. Already talked about escapism, the good and the bad of the perspective. The good in the perspective is that it's like a first person point of view, and the bad is that you you kind of, and I kind of like this and I kind of don't, you kind of know how things will end up because it's in retrospect. It's like a memoir. He's telling his own story. I really, really like the book. You get swept up into it. You can cruise through it. It's a fun read. A lot of great references. The parameters of this oasis is mostly like a sci-fi galaxy planet-oriented thing. So planets are based upon specific realms and ideas and creative content. And you get all kinds of great references, especially for nerds. I mean, it's just like a lot of good stuff there. And then my last bit was to compare this book and from watching the preview that the movie is going to come out. And I'd have to say that there was enough in the preview for me to really doubt that they do this book justice. And I do realize that they're going to have to augment some things possibly because of all the pop culture references and because of the scope of the book. And that tends to be part of the main issue with book to movie transitions. And people go on and on about all this stuff. But I do think that there is a way to do a book to movie transition correctly, and there are some examples I want to bring up, like The Martian. The Martian didn't sacrifice anything for the story from the book. They did a really great job. Interview with the Vampire. It's almost like scene to scene to scene to scene. Same goes for The Watchmen. All three great movies that I read the books. And they did it justice, and you could make small changes and still do the book justice, and that's a-okay, but there's enough about the preview that makes me kind of doubt about the story. For a small thing, for an example, H, his character in the preview, he looks like some half-orc, and in the book he was just, and I know this might sound silly, but in the book he's just like a human model character. And why and maybe we'll find out in the movie, but just why would that even be a thing? The main character is a pretty sedentary individual, spends all his time in the Oasis, and he works out kind of when powering up his haptic device in order to get online, but it's not like a ton of exercise, and he's just like a pretty like fit looking guy, and he's supposed to be kind of chubby. I mean, that's they could have used that as a transition through the story and used it as a really cool story device, because later on that kind of changes a little bit. It kind of gets worse and then it gets a lot better. I know it's a small thing, but it's part of the main character. And I'm gonna stop ranting about the differences of the preview and the book. I don't want to get into that. I'm excited to go see the movie and check it out, as I was excited about Ender's Game, and also was a little disappointed about that. But again, enough of that comparison. But I hope you guys enjoyed the book review. That's about it for now. I finished. My next book review will be about Glory Road, another Robert A. Heinlein book. I know I'm doing a lot of those, but yeah, he's got such a huge bibliography, and I just want to explore a lot of it, and I've really loved a lot of them, and then some of them have been like, okay, but yeah, so we'll get to that next time, and thanks for joining me for this book review on Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. All right, see you later.